Is William Nylander actually going to re-sign with the Toronto Maple Leafs? There's been so much conversation, and I've even been dragged into it. I've been dragged into the conversation that William Nylander is going to leave Toronto, he's going to sign with the Chicago Blackhawks or some other big market team, and that's just how it's going to go. I've been told by so many different people, friends, sources, just people in the industry, regardless, right? I think I should have stayed pretty strong on what I said. I mean, Nylander loves it in Toronto. I think they can find a middle ground. I think some of these crazy numbers that are being put out there, whether it's high 11s or 12 million per year, is crazy. And I also think we've gone away from the realistic number, which is somewhere between 9 and 10 million. That's where I was at, right? I was at kind of those familiar numbers we've seen from other stars in the league, whether, the Kucherov numbers or Rantanen, right? Guys that have been more productive and more, I would say, there's proof in winning, right, with those guys. There's been more sample size with those guys, Stanley Cups with those guys. So you'd have to think Nylander's that or lower, right? Probably not. I think also when you look at all the speculation online and just what people have created out of this and what people create always out of the Toronto market is just hype, right? So Nylander's repping a point per game, over a point per game to make it clear. And he's on pace for over 110 points on the season. So you just know the money's going to come, right? And we can watch this clip from Elliot Freeman today. Nick Kypreos today on Kyper and Bourne. And I'll play the clip and then we'll talk about it.
William Nylander.
Ooh.
And
what kind of talk?
Well, just
words.
It's trending closer to the Leafs and Willie getting a deal done is what I hear.
Really?
Yeah.
I've heard similar.
And the general feeling amongst, I think, both sides is they'd like to get it done before the NHL All-Star weekend.
So that is February 3rd. That is 1 month from now.
The other belief is that it will be a number that is over 11. So
that's good.
11.25 is the one that is probably mentioned the most.
Mm-hmm.
Time.
Okay, I just want to say quickly, people shouldn't be completely shocked by 11.25. If that's the number, that is basically where I thought the number would be, to be honest. I was pretty solid that they should bring it down to like 10.5 or under 11 for two reasons. And I'll play the rest of the clip, but one being, and he's about to mention it, the comparable being Pastrnak. Pasternak's at an $11.25 million deal like per year right now. But Pasternak's also hit 40 goals multiple times. He hit 60 goals last year, folks. And he also hit over 115 points last year. So I think, or around 110, 150 points last year. He's also been to the Stanley Cup final. So I think there's things that Pasternak's done that just Nylander's got to be a step behind. And that's where I would go, okay, 10.5, 10.75. At the point of 11.25, we're really arguing over 500,000 because if anyone wants to say Nylander's worth less than 10 million at this point, you're out of your mind, right? The market, the salary cap going up, the comparables around the league. Yes, you could talk about the Kucherov and Rantanen stuff as I have. Those contracts also were not signed within the last year. They were signed a couple years ago now, right? So I think you have to look at where the salary cap's at right now and the percentage of the salary cap. Nylander's going to be at least 10.5 million. I've accepted that, right? I've accepted that. At that point, or anytime after, you're arguing over hundreds of thousands, which is a lot of money. But in terms of the overall salary cap picture, it's not the end of the world from 10.5 to 11. So we'll see where it's at. I think it's got to be between 10.5 and 11.5. Anything over 11.5 is absolutely insane. I think other teams out there would give over 12, as I've talked about. I think the Chicago Blackhawks would give 12.5 to Nylander per year tomorrow. But at 8 years, I think Nylander should be able to accept 11 million per year. That should be the absolute max. Let's play the clip, or the rest of the clip.
It's 8.
Yeah.
So he says there 11.25 times 8, to make it clear.
You okay?
If I may, this gentleman that we are discussing right now is
really good.
He's fifth in the NHL in scoring, tied with Connor McDavid. David Pastrnak is 2 points more than him right now.
So,
it's tough to.
So that would put him right with Pastrnak, correct?
Yeah. What's past
11.25, I think.
Is it exactly?
I don't know. Can you?
I can make that.
Yeah.
happen?
The only one.
The question I have for you, Kyper.
The only one is Panarin, I think, at 11.6 on an AAV.
Yeah. Would you say that he took a discount like he did with Pasternak if Willie's
No,
Pasta is 11.25.
11.25. Yeah, I think there's an argument to be made that that's the number, and either you like it or you don't.
You know, at some point when you have negotiations about value, you can't argue with the numbers. Like
Yeah, you can't. I mean, you can't really argue too much with this number. As I said, if you really want to nitpick, you bring this down to about 10.5. I think there's a lot more of those numbers that you'll see in around that 10 to 11 range in the next couple of years for Nylander's production. So I think if the Leafs can get this under 11, it's a huge win in my eyes. I mean, at the end of the day, he just said it. Panarin's making 11.6 per. Passes 11.25 per. Yeah, you know what? People will have their issues with Nylander and his work ethic at times and things like that. Those are the same issues with Pasternak and the same issues with Panarin a lot of times. Talk to Rangers fans, talk to Bruins fans. There's times where those guys don't show that work ethic. Like Panarin has struggled through playoffs. Pasternak's had his rough patches. I would say, if anything, Pasternak should be regarded decently above Nylander for what he's done in his career so far. I think that. They were both in the 2014 NHL draft. So there's not like a difference in starting point here. They both started in the 2014 draft. They both made their respective teams and both have had a rise to elite, I would say, play. But at the end of the day, Pasternak's done more than Nylander. It's just as simple as that. It shouldn't be dictated by the last year previous to your UFA status, and that's what's going to happen here, right? It's recency bias. Nylander hasn't done anything like this in his career so far outside of scoring 40 goals. So say he was to get the 40 goals again, plus the 100 plus points, that gets you your 11 million right there. I mean, that's just the reality. I do think the number comes down a little bit if you're signing an 8-year deal with your team, especially the team that you drafted you. So I think the number should come down a little bit. But again, you're fooling yourself if you don't think there'd be at least one team giving them over 12 million in free agency. It would happen 1,000%. So you're fooling yourself if you think that otherwise. So once upon a time, there was teams willing to give Tavares 12 plus million, 13 million in free agency. There was teams willing to give Panarin close to the 12 million. These numbers have been out there, right? So it's not a secret, but again, it's just a debate if you think Nylander's there or not. That's why I think the Leafs should really try hard to get this under 11 million per year, especially if it's for 8 years. But we'll listen to the rest of what these guys have to say, and then past that, I'll give a little recap. But definitely comment your thoughts, guys, on what you think on this whole situation, because I think Kyper's on the right track here. I mean, he's obviously got more sources than I do. I also think that Nylander has wanted to stay in Toronto, and that's kind of why I've stayed a little bit less on Nylander. Is definitely going to Chicago the way some people have, or going to a big market like that. But I mean, it's open to possibility that the Leafs aren't willing to pay this number. I think this is the number to get it done, just over 11.
He produces it at the same rate as some of the great, the best players in the league.
The other thing you got to consider, Sammy, is that when the Leafs can front load this and turn it into a 12 or $13 million upfront signing bonus, it's worth a heck of a lot more than 11.25. It creates greater value in real money.
For sure it does, but it also helps the Leafs down the road if you don't like the back end of the deal. The real money owed is so much less.
Absolutely. And in 4 or 5 years, if the cap's up towards 100, north of $100 million, 11.25 for a 40-goal scorer, a 100-point guy is not crazy here.
And I do think the way that Willie skates and shoots the puck, that he's got a lot of good years left. I don't think, another 5 years as a top contributor.
I don't think a lot of people can make an argument that this is crazy.
Yeah, so I think it's a little crazy, but I do think I agree with Justin Bourne in just saying that. I do think that he's got some longevity to his game. I would like to hope, especially with his skating ability. So give me your thoughts, guys. I really think if I had to make a realistic prediction, I think it's going to be starting with 11. At this point, I don't think it starts with anything less than 11. It's the reality of the situation. I really think the Leafs should try hard to get it under 11. I think people are going to complain regardless. But I think looking around the league, especially like look at the deal Marner signed. If you really want to put Nylander at like the same level of what Marner got, I think the $10.9 million, if you can get it to 8 years, $10.9 million for Nylander, I think that's the middle ground here, because the Leafs are probably offering low 10. The Nylander camp's wanting probably the Panarin contract, 11.6. If you're actually talking about middle ground, it's between like 10.6 and 10.95. Nylander signed 10.9 per for 8 years. Sorry, 10.9 million per for 8 years. I think that's the middle ground here. So give me your thoughts, guys. Subscribe, like, comment, notification bell. We'll see what Nylander signs for if he signs with Toronto, but Kypreos is saying it's getting closer and potentially could happen before the All-Star break, which is the first week of February. All right, talk soon. Let me know what you guys think. Peace.